Thanks for watching Endgame Economics. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. It's completely free for you, and it helps us continue making more videos like this.
Welcome to this explainer. If you're a focused learner, well, buckle up, because we are going to completely unpack the deeply misunderstood macroeconomics of the casino industry. Seriously, if you think you know exactly how these massive entertainment empires make their money, prepare to have your perspective entirely shifted. We're about to explore how an industry built on absolute, literal mathematical certainty can somehow still find itself fighting for survival. Okay, let's dive into this. We tend to picture casinos as these infinite money printers, right? It's the classic trope. The house always wins. End of story. But here's the massive paradox we're unpacking today. How does a business that is mathematically guaranteed to win end up going completely bankrupt and selling for just 4 cents on the dollar? I mean, that's exactly what happened to the multi-billion-dollar Revel Casino in Atlantic City. To understand how a business that literally cannot lose actually loses, we have to start by looking really closely at the felt.
Section 1. The unbeatable math. Let's talk about the microeconomics.
See, the foundation of a casino isn't built on luck. It's not about the vibes or a dealer getting on a hot streak. It's built on cold, calculated arithmetic that is absolutely baked into the rules of every single game before a chip is ever even placed on the table. Take the classic American roulette wheel. You put your money on red, and it feels like a 50-50 coin flip, doesn't it? But actually, the wheel has 38 pockets. You've got 18 red, 18 black, and those 2 sneaky green ones for the 0 and 00. When that little ball lands on green, both red and black lose. So your quote-unquote coin flip pays you out as if there were 36 outcomes, while the wheel quietly spins with 38. That exact math guarantees the house keeps exactly 5.26% forever. It's a tiny edge, right? Just over 5 cents on every dollar, but it is the literal foundation of empires.
But wait, if a game like blackjack has an edge of just 0.5%, how in the world does a casino make real money? Well, this is where the most collapsed mental model in gambling occurs, the massive difference between the house edge and the hold percentage. Look, if you bring $1,000 to a blackjack table, the casino doesn't just apply their tiny 0.5% edge once. No way. You bet $25. You win some, you lose some, and you bet again. You continuously churn that exact same $1,000 buy-in through their edge, maybe 40 or 50 times in a single evening. Through the sheer repetition of your bets, that tiny 0.5% house edge transforms into a massive 30% hold percentage.
And all of this is entirely governed by the law of large numbers. This is a mathematical theorem stating that the more times an event is repeated, the closer the average result gets to the expected value. Sure, an individual gambler might beat the variance for a single night. I mean, somebody has to win visibly to keep the game going and keep the excitement up. But the casino, they don't play for one night. They play every hand on every machine 24 hours a day all year round. They rely on infinite frequency to guarantee their average edge. Honestly, this is why slot machines are the absolute most profitable things on the floor. They don't need dealers, they don't need cards, they just rapidly churn thousands of trials per hour to mathematically schedule the casino's win.
Which brings us to Section 2, not a gambling business. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the ultimate rug pull regarding modern Las Vegas. If you think you're standing in a pure gambling business when you walk into a modern mega resort, you are totally mistaken. Just check out this breakdown of the 2024 Las Vegas Strip revenue. The actual gambling, the whole reason the building literally has the word casino slapped on the outside, accounted for only 26.6% of total revenue. Hotel rooms made up nearly 32%, food over 18%, beverages over 8%. The massive industry pivot here is that the gambling floor is now effectively a loss leader. It's designed as a brilliantly calculated gravity well, pulling tourists into a highly sophisticated hospitality yield business.
And this pivot completely explains this mind-bending statistic. Nearly 25% of all hotel rooms on the Strip are entirely complimentary. When a casino gives away a $25,000 a night luxury villa to a high roller, that isn't generosity, folks. That is a highly calculated customer acquisition cost. They are operating that hotel room at a deliberate loss because the free room is bait. It's meant to generate massive gambling losses down on the floor that will easily dwarf the cost of washing the sheets and sending up room service.
Section 3. The Whale Paradox. Let's zoom out a bit.
So there is a fascinating divergence in the casino model when we look at extreme high rollers, or whales. These players completely distort the otherwise steady, predictable grind of that mathematical edge we just talked about. Consider the famous case of businessman Terence Watanabe back in 2007. In just one single year, he wagered an astonishing $825 million and lost $127 million.
What's truly staggering from a business perspective is that Harrah's Entertainment derived about 5.6% of its total Las Vegas gambling revenue that year from this single individual. Having one person account for almost 6% of a publicly traded empire's revenue, that introduces severe concentration risk. A business built on steady math suddenly finds its quarterly earnings swinging wildly based on just one guy's luck.
Now, to manage this extreme risk and keep these whales hooked, casinos offer massive incentives. A 30% loss rebate is totally customary for these high rollers. Think about that. The casino willingly refunds nearly a third of their own take just to facilitate prompt payment and guarantee the whale comes back. But man, this model introduces some profound moral hazards. During his run, Watanabe was allegedly highly intoxicated and on painkillers. New Jersey gaming regulators ultimately levied a $225,000 fine against the operator for its role in the whole mess. When a single customer's ruin is that wildly profitable, it practically forces regulators to step in and babysit the incentives.
Section 4. The multi-billion-dollar gamble.
So, who takes the real risk in this industry? Honestly, it isn't the players sweating at the blackjack table, it's the developers way before the doors even open. Let's just look at the sheer cost of spectacle. When the Mirage opened in 1989, it cost an unprecedented $565 million, which completely shocked people at the time. Fast forward to 2021, and Resorts World Las Vegas cost a staggering $4.3 billion. We're talking nearly an 8-fold increase in construction costs. Owners are shouldering terrifying multi-billion-dollar debt loads before they've sold a single cocktail or spun a single roulette wheel.
And those massive price tags create what we call a fixed cost anchor. You've got crushing debt servicing, heavy property taxes, the insane utility bills required to air condition 117,000 square feet of casino floor in the desert, and skyrocketing labor costs. Just to put that into perspective, labor costs jumped by $1.1 billion across the Strip in 2024 alone. The cold hard truth is that the house edge only prints money if the foot traffic is actually high enough to cover these relentless, massive fixed costs.
Which brings us right back to that burning question from the beginning of our explainer. Look at the tragic timeline of the Revel Casino in Atlantic City. It opened in 2012 for $2.4 billion, looking like this gleaming luxury tower. But by mid-2014, it had gone bankrupt twice. By September 2014, it shut its doors completely, costing 3,000 jobs. Eventually, a developer bought the whole thing out of bankruptcy for just $82 million. That is literally 4 cents on the dollar. It's the most efficient destruction of capital imaginable.
So the crucial point is this. How exactly did they fail when the math is unbeatable? Well, the anatomy of this failure breaks down into 3 parts. First, they misjudged the market, chasing an elite clientele in what was historically a mass market town. Second, they added unnecessary friction by banning smoking, which simply sent high-frequency gamblers walking right across the boardwalk to the competition. And third, they just choked on their fixed debt. Revel's math on the felt was totally flawless. The roulette wheels absolutely still favored the house, but its macroeconomic execution was completely backwards.
Section 5. The regulatory moat.
For our final macro zoom out, we absolutely need to look at the single largest hidden variable in the entire gambling business model: government regulators and the tax man. Check out the extreme disparity in gaming taxes across the country. In Nevada, the tax rate is famously gentle, topping out at just 6.75%. But over in Maryland, casinos pay up to 61% on slot revenue. This means an identical slot machine yielding 7 cents to the state of Nevada is giving 60 cents to Maryland. This fundamentally dictates the business model. Nevada's low tax rate is exactly why an operator can afford to build a spectacular $4 billion palace, while in a high-tax state, the margins only support a much more modest box.
But you might be wondering, why on earth would an operator ever agree to build in a state that takes 61% of their revenue? Simply put, the regulatory moat. This is the government-enforced protection from competition given to operators in exchange for those exorbitant tax rates. Operators will gladly pay 61% taxes and $20 million licensing fees because the state artificially restricts the supply of casinos. By legally guaranteeing that no new competitors can build anywhere near you, the government essentially grants these operators a highly lucrative regional monopoly.
And this brilliantly illustrates our final point about regulatory power. Back in 2019, Macau's gross gaming revenue reached an astronomical $36.6 billion. I mean, it completely dwarfed Las Vegas. But Macau relied heavily on VIP junkets from mainland China. When the government in Beijing initiated a single policy shift cracking down on those junkets, that concentrated revenue stream collapsed instantly.
Tens of billions in value evaporated overnight, not because the math on the table failed, but simply because the regulator decided to change the rules.
So, we are left with this final thought. If the arithmetic on the felt is absolutely flawless, but the government always wins the house, who really holds the cards? As we've seen today, a casino's edge is a microeconomic certainty. Those two green zeros on the roulette wheel are always going to collect their pennies. But that micro-certainty is wrapped inside a massive macroeconomic gamble, completely at the mercy of huge fixed costs, expensive customer acquisition, and regulatory whim. It leaves us to ponder the incredibly fragile reality behind these multi-billion-dollar empires. The next time you walk onto a casino floor, you'll know you aren't just looking at games of chance. You're looking at a deeply complex balancing act. Thanks for diving into this explainer with me. Keep asking the right questions, and I'll catch you next time.